About 5 miles northeast of Newport is the town of Caerleon. This was the site of a vast Roman legionary fortress known as Isca by the Romans. The fortress lay at the centre of a settlement of perhaps 100 hectares in area. Cardiff University produced a short film showing how the fortress may have looked in its heyday. The website of Cadu states,
"A soldier coming to the baths would strip, hand his clothes to one of the bathhouse slaves, and pass through into the frigidarium, or cold bath suite. After a cold dip, he'd anoint his body with oils, and then visit the warm and hot bath suites in turn."
The Romans had slaves, the Britons had slaves, the ancient Greeks had slaves, the ancient Egyptians had Jewish slaves. This was how things worked. You fought against another tribe, you won, you enslaved the survivors of the vanquished. Tourists can also see the best preserved Roman amphitheatre in Britain. It is thought that the amphitheatre would originally have had a timber grandstand and would have accommodated some 6,000 spectators. The entertainment may have included gladiatorial combat and the battle to the death of condemned criminals with wild animals such as bears, bulls, wolves or wild boars. The Romans were not always tolerant of Christians. Christians did not regard the emperor as divine, and that was perceived as a threat to imperial authority. 2 of the 3 named Christian martyrs from Roman Britain, along with Alban, were Julius and Aaron, likely to have been martyred sometime in the 3rd or early 4th century. These saints are mentioned by Gildas in his 6th century work on the ruin and conquest of Britain. Gildas writes that Julius and Aaron were of the city of the legions. Many people believe that Gildas is referring to Caerleon, and one can imagine Julius and Aaron being savage by a wild beast in the amphitheatre, to the delight of the crowd. The early Christian martyrs were entirely peaceful, but were prepared to sacrifice their lives to the dream of a better world, following the example of the first Christian martyr, Saint Stephen, who was stoned to death after making a critical speech to the Sanhedrin. Before being stoned, Stephen had a vision of the Trinity.
When the members of the Sanhedrin heard this, they were furious and gnashed their teeth at him. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, looked up to heaven and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. "Look," he said, "I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God." At this, they covered their ears, and yelling at the top of their voices, they all rushed at him. dragged him out of the city, and began to stone him. Meanwhile, the witnesses laid their coats at the feet of a young man named Saul. While they were stoning him, Stephen prayed, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit." Then he fell on his knees and cried out, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." When he had said this, he fell asleep. And Saul approved of their killing him.
Saul, who was initially zealous for Jewish law, changed his name to Paul after converting to Christianity.
Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. For 3 days he was blind, and did not eat or drink anything.
Although being the second Gospel in the New Testament canon, the Gospel of Mark is commonly regarded as being the earliest Gospel written. The author has an association with the city of Alexandria in Egypt. At the time, Alexandria was a citadel of learning. In a television series broadcast in 1980, astronomer Carl Sagan described Alexandria as being the greatest city the Western world had ever seen.
Alexandria was the greatest city the Western world had ever seen. People from all nations came here to live, to trade, to learn. On a given day, these harbors were thronged with merchants, scholars, tourists. It's probably here that the word cosmopolitan realized its true meaning of a citizen, not just of a nation, but of the cosmos. To be a citizen of the cosmos. Here were clearly the seeds of our modern world. But why didn't they take root and flourish? Why instead did the West slumber through 1,000 years of darkness until Columbus and Copernicus and their contemporaries rediscovered the work done here? I cannot give you a simple answer, but I do know this. There is no record in the entire history of the library that any of the illustrious scholars and scientists who worked here ever seriously challenged a single political or economic or religious assumption of the society in which they lived. The permanence of the stars was questioned. The justice of slavery was not.
Coptic church tradition states that the evangelist Mark was their first bishop. Muslim martyrs are not entirely peaceful. Downriver from Caerleon is the city of Newport, where every year the birthday of an historical slave owner is unapologetically celebrated. Roads are closed, marches are held, speeches are made as the Newport Muslim community celebrate the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad was born in Mecca in 570 AD. When he was 40, Muhammad reported being visited by the angel Gabriel, who revealed truth to him. Muhammad started making these revelations public. He taught that God is one, and complete submission to God is the right way of life. His teachings were written down, and the writings were compiled into the holy book of Islam, the Quran. Islam spread through military force. Egypt was one of the earliest countries to fall. Al-Muqawqis was the leader of Egypt in the early 7th century. Muhammad sent him an epistle. Muhammad required that Egyptians give up their understanding of the Trinity.
In the name of God, the Gracious One, the Merciful, from Muhammad, servant of God and his apostle, to Al-Muqawqis, Premier of Egypt, peace unto whoever followeth the guided path. And thereafter, I verily call thee to the call of submission to God. Submit, that is, embrace Islam, and be safe from perdition, as God shall compensate thy reward twofolds. But if thou turn away, then upon thee will be the guilt of delusion of the Egyptians. Then, O people of the Scripture, come to a term equitable between us and you, that we worship none but God and associate, as partners in worship, with him nothing, and we take not one another as lords apart from God. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are submitters to God.
Al-Muqawqis recognized the threat, but declined the invitation. Instead, he sent peace offerings.
In the name of God, the Gracious One, the Merciful, to Muhammad, son of Abd Allah, from Al-Muqawqis, Premier of Egypt, peace unto thee. Thereafter I have already read thy letter, and comprehended what thou mentioned therein, and what thou called me to. I have known that a prophet is still due to come, but I thought he would emerge in the Levant. I have already treated with dignity thy messenger, and I am sending to thee 2 slave girls, whose position in Egypt is great, and also close, and I am sending as gifts to thee a she-mule for thee to ride. Then I ensure peace unto you.
The country didn't fall in Muhammad's lifetime, but it did shortly after. Historian Hugh Kennedy writes,
Of all the early Muslim conquests, that of Egypt was the swiftest and most complete. Within a space of 2 years, the country had come entirely under Arab rule. Even more remarkably, it has remained under Muslim rule ever since. Seldom in history can so massive a political change have happened so swiftly and been so long-lasting.
One of the academics who signed the open letter to University Vice-Chancellor Colin Riordan, suggesting the university cut ties with Stonewall, was Abyd Quinn-aziz. Quinn-aziz is a Muslim. Aziz is well regarded. He is on the steering group of Race Alliance Wales, an organisation set up to challenge racism in Wales. His profile on the Race Alliance Wales website states,
I was born in Tanzania, East Africa, where my parents were also born, and moved to the UK in the mid-1960s. I'd made Wales my home and have lived here since 1999, having previously studied in Cardiff in the 1980s. I am a registered social worker and have worked in a variety of settings for about 25 years. Now I am Program Director of the MA in Social Work at the School of Social Sciences at Cardiff University. I have always been actively involved in anti-discriminatory work and meeting people who are also interested in offering support on issues of race. This great group of individuals looked at how we might organise to actively make Wales an anti-racist society, and led to us setting up Race Alliance Wales. I am pleased to be able to work along these lines, both in my main job and campaigning work, with organisations such as Plaid BME, British Association of Social Workers, and more generally across the university.
In July 2022, Cardiff University announced that the university had committed to becoming an anti-racist institution and had become a supporting organisation of Race Alliance Wales. Vice-Chancellor Professor Colin Riordan said,
We are clear on our responsibility to be inclusive and to encourage diversity of thought and action through our actions. We are taking all the steps we can to become an anti-racist institution. Our links with Race Alliance Wales and the Zero Racism Wales pledge take us another step further on our journey.
In advance of the 2021 Senedd election, Race Alliance Wales released a manifesto for an anti-racist Wales titled From Rhetoric to Reality. The cover page contained an image of fists being held up in black power salute. The first overarching recommendation was:
recognize systemic racism. There should be greater recognition from Welsh Government that racial, ethnic and religious intolerance is systemic and institutional, has increased post-Brexit, and that it threatens the possibility of future generations living in a diverse, safe and cohesive Wales.
The manifesto advised
to improve Wales's legal response to hate crime by adopting definitions of each form of hate, including adopting the definition of Islamophobia produced by the All-Party Parliamentary Group for British Muslims.
The All-Party Parliamentary Group for Muslims' definition of Islamophobia is:
Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Contemporary examples of Islamophobia in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in encounters between religions and non-religions in the public sphere could, taking into account the overall context, include, but are not limited to, using the symbols and images associated with classic Islamophobia, e.g., Muhammad being a paedophile, claims of Muslims spreading Islam by the sword, or subjugating minority groups under their rule, to characterize Muslims as being sex groomers, inherently violent, or incapable of living harmoniously in plural societies.
To adopt this definition of Islamophobia will have a chilling impact on free speech. Nevertheless, the manifesto was endorsed by then University Vice-Chancellor Colin Riordan. In December 2022, it was announced that Aziz had won an award for excellence in equality, diversity and inclusion. He tweeted,
"Blanking coming over here and winning our awards."
A page on the Cardiff University website states, "How can we find out more about you and your work?" Aziz replied,
"You can follow me on my personal Twitter account."
The link takes you to Aziz's account with an image of a shield stating Palestine, Global Intifada. Below is the image of a masked man throwing a Molotov cocktail. A banner includes the text, "You'll never fight alone." The banner below states 1948 to now. Cardiff University's 2022 award winner for excellence in equality, diversity and inclusion is campaigning for the destruction of the State of Israel. In 1988, the political group Hamas published their charter. The main points of the charter are:
Israel will be established and will stay established until Islam nullifies it, as it nullified what was before it. Article 8. Motto: Allah is its goal, the Messenger is its leader, the Quran is its constitution, jihad is its methodology, and death for the sake of Allah is its most coveted desire. Article 11. The Islamic resistance movement believes that the land of Palestine is an Islamic trust upon all Muslim generations till the day of resurrection. It is not right to give it up, nor any part of it, neither a single Arab state, nor all the Arab states, neither a king nor a leader, nor all the kings or leaders, nor any organization, Palestinian or Arab, have such authority, because the land of Palestine is an Islamic trust upon all Muslim generations until the day of resurrection. Article 7. Even though the Islamic resistance movement looks forward to fulfill the promise of Allah, no matter how long it takes, because the Prophet of Allah says, the last hour would not come until the Muslims fight against the Jews, and the Muslims would kill them, and until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree, and a stone or a tree would say, Muslim or servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. But the tree of Garkwood would not say it, for it is the tree of the Jews. Article 15. When an enemy occupies some of the Muslim lands, jihad becomes obligatory for every Muslim. In the struggle against the Jewish occupation of Palestine, the banner of jihad must be raised. That requires that Islamic education be passed to the masses locally, in the Arab world and in the Islamic world, and that the spirit of jihad, fighting and joining the ranks, must be broadcast among the Ummah.
Hamas want to destroy the Jews and the State of Israel. Hamas are the elected government of Gaza. In 2018, in response to a tweet from the Board of Deputies of British Jews wishing a blessed and peaceful Ramadan to all Muslims, Aziz tweeted,
To all Muslims across the world, apart from those Muslims Board of Deputies are suggesting deserved being slaughtered, as they belonged to Hamas, a political party. No thanks. You can keep your wishes.
On October the 7th, 2023, Hamas mounted an invasion into Israel. Just over 1,100 people were killed in the attack, including 260 at a music festival. MEMRI is the Middle East Research Institute, an apparently independent news reporting and translation service. MEMRI reported that in the wake of the attacks, Hamas leaders prostrated themselves in a display of gratitude.
هذا المنظر طلع طلع يقولي صحيح شباب الجيب وجايبين طلع طلع جنب الاسرائيلي لا سجدة الشكر ان شاء الله على هذا النصر اللهم اتم نصرك وعزك يا رب لشعبنا وامتنا الله اكبر
Research student Setha Ozalp tweeted,
I've seen disturbing content from Israel involving acts by Hamas terrorists. I won't share them on my timeline, but they're reminiscent of ISIS's brutality. Israel has every right to defend and protect its citizens. My thoughts are with the Israeli people.
An article in the New York Times in December 2023 described how sexual violence was used during the attacks.
The Israeli officials say that everywhere Hamas terrorists struck, rave, the military bases along the Gaza border, and the kibbutzim, they brutalized women. A 2-month investigation by the Times uncovered painful new details, establishing that the attacks against women were not isolated events, but part of a broader pattern of gender-based violence on October the 7th. Many of the accounts are difficult to bear, and the visual evidence is disturbing to see. The Times viewed photographs of one woman's corpse that emergency responders discovered in the rubble of a besieged kibbutz, with dozens of nails driven into her thighs and groin. The Times also viewed a video provided by the Israeli military showing 2 dead Israeli soldiers at a base near Gaza who appeared to be shot directly in their vaginas. Sapir, a 24-year-old accountant, has become one of the Israeli police's key witnesses. She does not want to be fully identified, saying she would be hounded for the rest of her life if her last name were revealed. She attended the rave with several friends and provided investigators with graphic testimony. She also spoke to the Times. In a 2-hour interview outside a cafe in southern Israel, she recounted seeing groups of heavily armed gunmen rape and kill at least 5 women. About 15 meters from her hiding place, she said, she saw motorcycles, cars and trucks pulling up. She said that she saw about 100 men, most of them dressed in military fatigues and combat boots, a few in dark sweatsuits, getting in and out of the vehicles. She said the men congregated along the road and passed between them assault rifles, grenades, small missiles, and badly wounded women. It was like an assembly point, she said. The first victim, she said, she saw was a young woman with copper-colored hair, blood running down her back, pants pushed down to her knees. One man pulled her by her hair and made her bend over. Another penetrated her, Sapir said. And every time she flinched, he plunged a knife into her back. She said she then watched another woman shredded into pieces. While one terrorist raped her, she said, another pulled out a box cutter and sliced off her breast. One continues to rape her, and the other throws her breast to someone else, and they play with it, throw it, and it falls on the road, Sapir said. She said the man sliced her face, and then the woman fell out of view. Around the same time, she said, she saw 3 other women raped and terrorists carrying the severed heads of 3 more women.
It is said that the first casualty of war is truth, but the fact that such atrocities occurred at the music festival seem to be incontrovertible. In response to Ozalp's tweet, Cardiff University's 2022 Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Award winner tweeted,
"What's that term again, when one people have all the rights and others are deprived of any?"
Ismail Haniyeh was a former Hamas leader. On the 26th of October 2023, Memory reported that he had said that the demise of Israel was inevitable and the blood of women, children and the elderly was needed to awaken the revolutionary spirit.
كما قلت وفي كل مرة أكرر إن دماء الأطفال والنساء والشيوخ لا أقول تستصرخكم بل نحن الذين نحتاج هذه الدماء لكي توقظ فينا روح الثورة لكي توقظ فينا العناد لكي توقظ فينا التحدي والسير إلى الأمام.
On the 31st of October 2023, Abyd Quinn-aziz, the chair of Plaid Cymru BME, and Sioned Williams, MS, Plaid Cymru's spokesperson for equalities, announced.
In the Senedd, Plaid Cymru is proud to be working to address and eradicate racism through our cooperation agreement with Welsh Government on the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. While Black History Month is an opportunity for everyone to recognise and celebrate the contribution of Black individuals to our communities and nation, it's also a time to ensure we appreciate and disrupt the barriers which can hamper Black people from playing a full part in our nation's life.
On 1st of November 2023, Memory reported that Hamas official Ghazi Hamad declaring that they will repeat October the 7th again and again until Israel is annihilated.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا هذه الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك احنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة انه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة لأنه احنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات أن نقاتل نعم. ونحارب لكن كما قلت لك بدنا ندفع ثمن نعم احنا مستعدين معلش بدي أقول لك بشكل واضح احنا اسمنا شعب الشهداء.
Nasha Jew apparently screenshotted an image from Aziz's Twitter feed. In November 2023, the Senedd debated a motion brought by Plaid Cymru that condemned the response of the Israeli government. Senedd member Mick Antoniw announced that he would abstain from the vote. Quinn-aziz tweeted,
"Is that the Mick Antoniw who did all that for blonde-haired, blue-eyed people like us from Ukraine?"
Conservative member of the Senedd, Natasha Asghar, also abstained. On the 14th of November 2023, while attempting to talk to students, she was heckled.
Very, very hard for him to get to. For him, he was delighted by the fact that Palestine! Free! Palestine! Natasha, you can't hide! Natasha, you can't hide! You said for genocide! If you'll notice, there are parties like Plaid Cymru who've had Muslim members before, but they've had the highest number of defections. Why? Because of sheer racism. And for that purpose, it's really important that the Muslim community realises that for a party, unfortunately, has been really, really badly behaved towards Muslims here in the Wales, here in the United Kingdom, it's very, very sanctimonious for that very same party to be standing there saying that we're really going to support the Palestinian Muslims, yet they can't even treat the ones here properly with respect and dignity.
So you have no influence on international affairs?
Politics has zero influence on international relations. And land amongst the stars. Have you heard that saying before? Why can you not aim for peace? A ceasefire will naturally occur. Can I ask you, really, really hope one thing you take home today, and you tell all these guys outside, is that what happened, this vote that took place, particularly this week, which I know everyone's chanting about, and I'm sure many of you here want to hear my answer about. No, that's fine. I get the agenda. I'm not that.
It's not an agenda.
No. I get that this was going to be a topic that was definitely going to be
because it's not an agenda. This is a human rights issue.
Absolutely, and I don't deny. Look, people dying is not something that I nor anyone wants to see.
So then why are you not calling for a ceasefire? Why?
You feel happy with what you've done. You're responsible for the deaths of innocent people.
I hope you've got your running shoes on, Natasha. No. I'm definitely going to find them.
Okay, one more. Just push it there.
On the 19th of November 2023, Aziz spoke in support of a University College Union motion condemning Israel. On December 1st, 2023, Fathi Hamad, a senior Hamas politician, was on television.
هذا الشعب المجرب الذي كان جنديا على مدار التاريخ والذي يستعد إن شاء الله تعالى لتحرير القدس وتحرير الأقصى والذي يستعد إن شاء الله تعالى نقولها بملء الفم يستعد لاحتضان الخلافة بعاصمتها القدس إن شاء الله تعالى ولن تكون القدس عاصمة لفلسطين فقط كدولة مستقلة وإنما ستكون عاصمة للخلافة الإسلامية. لذلك مطلوب سريعا أولا أن يتوحد الشعب الفلسطيني تحت راية لا إله إلا الله. لا يجوز أن يقوم الرئيس التعيس عباس بالانفراد بجزء من الشعب الفلسطيني وينفرد بل يمسك السلاح في الضفة الغربية ولا زالت 70,000 قطعة كلاشن مسلطة على رقاب وصدور أبناء شعبنا الفلسطيني. يجب أن ننتفض كشعب فلسطيني وأن نتخلص من هذه أسباب الخيانة والهمالة والعمالة. لمن؟ لليهود والنصارى لمن يقتلون أبناء شعبكم؟ لا يجوز. يجب أن ننتفض ويجب أن يكون هناك وحدة فلسطينية مطلوبة سريعا. لا يجوز كفلسطين أن نقول وين الملايين من العرب وين الملايين من المسلمين ونحن كفلسطين لا زال هناك جزء لا زال يأتمر بأمر هذا الخائن عباس. ولذلك نحن نقول بالإفينة عباس الخائن يجب أن ينحاز إلى ويجب أن يرفع أمره وعصيه على أبناء الأجهزة الأمنية. وأنتم يا أبناء الأجهزة الأمنية ماذا تقولون؟ ماذا تنتظرون؟ كل هذا يا أخي ليس لا نقول إسلاما ولا شهامة. ألا يوجد عندكم شهامة؟ ألا يوجد عندكم رجولة؟ ثانيا الوحدة العربية وين الملايين من العرب؟ وينهم؟ أين هم؟ ألا يوجد شهامة؟ ألا يوجد نجدة؟ كيف يا أهل الأردن؟ يا أهل الأردن يا شعب الأردن أصولكم فلسطين حوالي 4 مليون طول الحدود بينكم وبين الضفة الغربية 400 كيلو. أين أنتم؟ لماذا لا زلتم تتقيدون بقيود الذل والعار والشنار؟ يجب أن تستنفروا قوتكم. ماذا تنتظرون؟ هل تنتظرون أن تباد غزة عن بكرة أبيها؟ بعض الناس بيقول لك لابد أن نشكر شعوبنا العربية والإسلامية. أنا ما بديش أشكر. أنا لا أريد أن أشكر الشعوب العربية والإسلامية. أنا لكم أن تنتفضوا أن تتقدموا في سبيل الله سبحانه. لا شكر لكم لا عذر لكم لا رخص لكم. يجب أن تنتفضوا كما انتفض الشعب الفلسطيني بنسائه بأطفاله بشيوخه بكل ما قدموا قدمنا في سبيل الله. ولازلنا نقدم. العدو الصهيوني يفاوضنا تحت النار وأنتم لا زلتم تعيشون في العار. العدو الصهيوني يفاوضنا تحت النار بأشلائنا بدمنا وأنتم لازلتم تعيشون وتسعدون بالعار.
On December the 7th, 2023, the Jewish Chronicle reported that students at the university had to be escorted away from a debate for their safety.
All right, you have 4 minutes. If you could introduce yourself, please.
So my name is Jay. I'm not going to be intimidated, so don't try. Now, I would really like to thank the person that spoke before me for an emotive speech. I really would. And my sympathies go to you dearly. We all have different perspectives on the Israel and Palestine conflict. It is a complex and challenging issue that affects the lives of many individuals in the region. Today, I present my perspective on the motion proposing for a ceasefire. Furthermore, it is important to acknowledge Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas. A recognised terrorist organisation.
Okay.
Hamas has shown a lack of consideration for peaceful settlements by developing their military operations in civilian areas and refusing to recognise the possibility of a two-state solution. The horrors of Hamas extend beyond their attacks of free speech, targeting political descendants, suppressing the rights of women and LGBTQ individuals. These actions contribute to suffering These actions result in violence in the region as well. It is not a war against the Palestinian people, but a response to a terrorist threat. It is also
Jack Juby explains the motion.
We put forward one, some of my peers and I, we put forward one saying, condemn Hamas as a terrorist organisation. A message that I thought would be quite simple and that the majority of my peers would I guess, understand and get behind. And the response was a motion put forward in response to it called Ceasefire Now. And frankly, the Ceasefire Now motion had I mean, I could go into it, but full of misinformation, quoting news sources that have been linked to Hamas, and I couldn't really believe it. And I thought, maybe there'll be a swing. There'll be a swing when it came to voting on this. I would say that 95% of the people in that auditorium that were voting to pass the motion voted in favour of a bit of information, a motion that was full of misinformation and propaganda, and I couldn't believe it. And a statement got put out by the Jewish Society later that day saying that they felt intimidated by what was going on in that room, the jeers that they heard. And someone who spoke against it, one of my friends spoke against it, and he was booed off stage. I mean, your viewers can find the clips online. It got picked up by various news sources because he was trying to stand up for Israel, and I couldn't believe it. We actually had to be escorted, something that the news channels didn't pick up, but me and my peers had to be escorted out of the student union building because of the attacks that we were getting.
In May 2024, Cardiff Students for Palestine set up an encampment in university grounds.
What?
Bye-bye.
What?
Shoo.
What do you mean, shoo?
Shoo.
Why?
You're not welcome here.
Why not?
Because you're a Nazi. Are you
I beg your pardon, my ancestors died in the chambers. How dare you? How dare you say that to me? My Jewish ancestors died in the chambers and you have the audacity to say that to me. You disgusting man.
Bye-bye.
You foul man. Who the hell says that to someone? Disgusting fool.
You're a fascist, you're a racist.
You know nothing of me, of my kind that I has. You know nothing.
Don't play VID poll card.
VD Barda, let them have. You know nothing of my kind. I come in the presence of the Lord at that door. Rejoice in the Lord and thou shalt be grateful. Stand up to the Lord and thou shalt be grateful at that door.
In March 2025, a report was produced on the Palestinian Authority's educational framework in the shadow of the war. The executive summary of the report stated,
"This research shows that these newly created materials contain anti-Semitic content that encourages students to acts of violence justified on both nationalistic and religious grounds, as has been documented many times in PA textbooks. The European Union has provided the PA with over 380 million euros since signing the letter of intent in July 2024. This funding was intended to be subject to progress in the PA's overall reform agenda, with the education sector identified as a key area for change. The EU's financial support was distributed in tranches contingent on continued steps toward reform. These findings indicate that incitement to violence has not been eliminated from textbooks and that the PA's curriculum content remains a central vehicle to radicalize children in Gaza. The PA has retained content containing anti-Semitism, glorification and justification of violence and terrorism, encouragement of martyrdom and jihad, dehumanization and demonization of Israel, and the erasure of Israel from maps."
In June 2025, it was reported that Cardiff University threatened students with jail if they protest without permission on campus. Aziz was not impressed. He tweeted,
"I realise I misunderstood that the Cardiff Uni slogan is that we are an anti-racist university, not anti."
Cardiff Students for Palestine have 5,680 followers on Instagram. Welsh people used to venerate those of Christian faiths who were martyred for living the truth in peace. Currently, Cardiff students venerate the death cult. Mosab Hassan Yousef is a son of a Hamas co-founder who has defected to Israel. He condemns those Muslims who refuse to condemn Hamas.
But they still have the need for a religious identity, which is a false identity. Individuality is something else. Freedom is something else. A person who knows who they are above all national and religious identities. There is no need to pose as a Muslim in a critical time in the human history. This is the time to take moral responsibility. What's the point of identifying as a Muslim while people threatening to erase an entire Jewish community? This is not acceptable. This is why I want the Muslim to stand and be clear.
Okay.
Up to this point, I haven't seen the Muslims taking a moral stand, a firm stand against Hamas. You know why? Because they are Muslims. Because they are Muslims against the Jewish people. And this is where I want to push the Muslims to the point where they need to stand firmly and say, it doesn't matter if they are Jewish or Christians. A genocide is a genocide and is rejected. Hamas is rejected. I want to see this clearly. Then after that, I will have respect for the majority of the Muslim people. As long as they fail their moral responsibility, I have no respect for them.
Okay.
Melanie Phillips explains the bizarre alliance between progressive groups and Hamas supporters.
By side, shoulder to shoulder with Islamists. It's quite comical if it wasn't so awful, because the Islamists would basically, kill them, some of them, for what they stand for. Women's rights, gay rights. I mean, these things are inimical to Islamic society, but they are bound together by a common aim, even though the society they want to have they are polar opposites, but they're bound together by the common aim of destroying the West and hatred of Jews and Israel. And this is enough to keep them on the streets together. But I think, as you were suggesting, there's actually a much deeper set of connections, and one of the most important is this inversion of reality. The Islamic world, as I understand it, is dominated, unfortunately, at the moment by people who believe that Islam is perfection and the rest of the world is basically the work of the devil. And so anything that happens in the Islamic world is good, and anything that happens in the other world, in the non-Islamic world, is bad. And so if Muslims commit terrible crimes, human bomb attacks, in this framework of thinking, they are always acting in self-defense. They're always acting in defense of the world of Islam, because they are doing the work of God, and the people they have murdered are basically bad people, and they're only killed because they were attacking Islam. It's a complete inversion. When you come to the Palestinian cause, that's exactly what it is. They accuse Israel of doing precisely what they're doing, but of which Israel is innocent. So the Palestinian Arabs want the ethnic cleansing of every Jew from a future state of Palestine, and they accuse the Jews of ethnic cleansing, the Jews of Israel. I mean, it was the Arab world which really ethnically cleansed 850,000 Jews from the entire Arab world, a world in which they had lived since antiquity, after Israel was created, and they were expelled because they were Jews. So that was ethnic cleansing. So the Palestinian cause accuses Israel falsely. Now, the Western liberal falls for that for two reasons. First of all, it believes in the Palestinian cause because it believes that that gives itself, as a progressive world, moral worth. But also because the progressive liberal mindset has also been to invert reality. It was decades ago that the West told itself, the Western intellectuals told themselves that objective truth was no more. There was no such thing as objective truth. Anyone who believes there is such a thing as absolute or objective truth is quite clearly, in this way of thinking, a complete intellectual cretin. Only, sophisticated people know that everything is a matter of opinion. Feelings trump facts. And if there are no such things there's no such thing as truth, there is no such thing as a lie. And consequently, you cannot have a distinction between truth and lies. It's only a matter of opinion. So if I say that the Israelis are the victims of ethnic cleansing and or the attempted ethnic cleansing and attempted genocide, that's only my opinion, according to this mindset. So if you get rid of truth, you get rid of rationality. And you open the way to what we have developed, which is the belief that, as Oprah Winfrey said to Meghan Markle, your truth. You have your truth, I have my truth. Well, excuse me, I mean, what's she talking about? She's talking about opinions, and she's talking at the worst level about, lies being someone else's truth. It's a mind-frying kind of hijack of language that we're living through. But going on, what have we created in the West, in the progressive West, as a result of this business of, it's my truth, everything's a matter of opinion, my feelings trump facts. It's all to do with the individual. What the individual wants, what the individual says, what the individual feels is what is. And that has led to our victim culture, in which I feel oppressed by you. And because I feel oppressed by you, I am oppressed by you, even though I may have been absolutely dreadful to you and have caused you to lose your job and all your social circle and all your prospects. But nevertheless, I'm the victim of you. So it's that kind of inversion that you can do no right because you are an oppressor group. You are white, you are male, you are Christian, you are Western, whatever it is, you're an oppressor group, therefore you can do no right. And I am black, I come from a developing world country, I am not conventionally gendered or sexualized, whatever it is. I define myself as a minority victim group. I can therefore do no wrong because I'm a victim. I must be the victim of you, even though I have told lies about you, I have damaged you. This is irrelevant. Because I feel that I'm a victim, I am a victim. So you have a Western progressive mindset, which, because it's abolished truth and reason, and because it's embraced hyper-individualism and victim culture, has inverted reality. So you have an absolute match between the liberal progressive mindset, which inverts reality for its purposes, and the Islamic mindset, which inverts reality for its purposes. So you have a marriage made in hell.